All right, it's time for episode 75 of the Press Box Podcast, and this episode is all about NFL free agency 2021. Free agency kicked off just a few weeks ago, and there's been a lot of moves made. So we'll get to some of those moves. We'll break down just about every team. We'll touch on some of the re-signings and some of their guys they lost, as well as free agent signings, and talk about what that means for the upcoming season. Before we get into that, we are on Twitter, as we've said a lot of times, at PressBoxPod. Go follow us there. And we like to see you guys interacting with us, so keep that up. And also, before we get into the episode, make sure you subscribe on iTunes, rate and review. Also, leave a comment. We want to hear what you have to say about the podcast. And let's get into episode 75, NFL Free Agency.
Okay, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Ralph Miranda. I'll be joined by my other co-host, Joseph Miranda, and our producer, Nathan Miranda, shortly. This is episode 75 of the Press Box Podcast, and today we're going to talk about NFL free agency. The NFL's free agency window opened up about 2, maybe 2.5 weeks ago. The new league year kicked in here a couple weeks ago. And teams are starting to jockey in position to pick up free agents. And once that settles, the dust settles on that, then the NFL draft will come around and they'll fill their holes with college players, and then they'll start their off-season activities. And before you know it, it'll be September and we'll be ready for the new NFL season. So, Joseph, what are your initial thoughts here as we begin this episode on NFL free agency?
Ravens signing safety Geno Stone. That was a big move. I had that in front of me, so I had to mention it. But regardless of that, thoughts are that, I think it's been overshadowed, the free agency market has been overshadowed by some of the quarterback moves we've talked about already, because those are the big ticket guys, and that's more been involved in trades.
Right.
Our favorite journeyman Ryan Fitzpatrick signed with the Washington football team.
Right.
So there was it looks to be a starting quarterback. I think he'll probably start there. That was signed in free agency. But beyond that, I guess we'll start touching on some of the, the bigger, more impactful deals here. We'll stay in with the quarterbacks. I'm surprised. We'll start with the Patriots. I was surprised they brought back Cam Newton. Really that they brought him back at all.
Right.
B, I think they said he's getting his base salary of around $6 million, which I think last year they signed him for just above league minimum.
Right.
So they gave him like a huge pay increase. And he threw 8 touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
I mean,
what was that stat you saw?
I think it was. And I have to double. I think this was the stat. I'm quoting it right. Since 1970, there's only been 4 quarterbacks, 3 or 4, that have started at least 15 games and thrown less than 10 touchdowns. He's one of them.
Right.
I think Trent Dilfer is on the list, and maybe another guy.
And they thought, let's give this man $6 million.
Let's bring him back for another year. The Patriots signed a lot of other guys. They've had a big free agency period, which we can talk about, but that one's a little questionable if they're not going to make another quarterback move, which we don't know about. But I think he's kind of done, washed up, and we saw that last year.
Well, I think so too. I still think the Patriots they finished 7-9, so they're going to be picking probably around 13, 14, some of that general area, which is the highest they've picked, I guess, if you want to look at it that way, or lowest, depending upon your perspective, in a long time, probably since Bill Belichick's first year there. So they can probably get a quarterback. Now, here's another thing. A lot of these guys they've re-signed, they could trade some of these guys. They've got draft picks they could trade to move up in the draft if they want to get one of these college quarterbacks that are coming out. I think, I agree with you. It is a big head scratcher that not that they re-signed Cam Newton, but that they re-signed him at more money than they had him last year. But I think their thinking is, hey, look, we really don't have anybody on the roster that we think is a decent quarterback right now. We don't want to sign any free agent quarterbacks. So let's bring Newton back. Let's pay him a little extra money, and let's try to draft a guy and see if we could develop him. I think that's the only thing that's probably going on here. because they can get a good quarterback, if they want one.
Yeah.
But my thing is, I know what you're saying, that they figure you're basically saying they need like a stopgap.
Right.
But they can't go out and sign a stopgap for less than first of all, they couldn't sign him as a stopgap for less than $6 million? And if for whatever reason he was demanding that, they couldn't be like, fine, and go out and get somebody else for less than $6 million?
Well, and I agree with everything you just said, but here's another problem the Patriots have. Remember Brady's last year, what was the problem? He didn't have any receivers to throw to outside of Julian Edelman, all right? I mean, do they have any receivers right now that they can throw to?
I'm not saying that Cam Newton was the only reason for their offensive woes. I'm just saying that I don't think you pay him $6 million.
No, but I'm saying the reason you might want to re-sign Cam Newton if you don't have enough weapons around him is he's a guy that can run it a lot.
Not anymore.
Well, he did some last year. I mean, at least he gives you that option,
At $6 million, I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting.
I guess my point is, if they thought, I'm sure the Patriots saw all of these benefits when they signed him last season.
Right.
But they felt that it was worth signing him at how much was he getting paid last season?
About $1 million.
Less than $1 million, $700,000.
Right. So what's changed to make them think now all of a sudden that those same attributes are worth more than that now after what he did last season?
I don't know.
Well, see, let's look at it this way. The Washington football team signed Ryan Fitzpatrick 1 year, $10 million. Okay. So my point is that's probably the $5 million for Cam Newton may have been a bargain.
I know. I mean, if you look at a starting quarterback salary, assuming he's going to start, that's pretty much bargain basement. But I'm talking about this individual situation.
Right. I'm not saying if Cam Newton was, I don't know, like this the individual situation. If he just added the blue, if he was with another team last year and added the blue, the Patriots signed him and it was $6 million, I wouldn't even think anything of it probably.
Right.
But the fact that they were paying him like less than $1 million last season, and all of a sudden they thought they would pay him more now. I don't know why that is. It seems kind of strange.
Beyond that, they signed a lot of guys, the Patriots. They got Hunter Henry,
right,
from the Chargers for a 3-year deal. They also signed Jonnu Smith to a 4-year deal, the other tight end.
Right.
I think he was with the Titans, right?
Right. They signed Nelson Aguilar, the guy that used to be at Philadelphia for a while.
Right.
A wide receiver.
Another receiver, Kendrick Bourne,
right,
from San Francisco. Then they got Kyle Van Noy back. He used to be with them.
Right.
The Dolphins released him. Right. And then Jalen Mills to a 4-year deal, the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been active, more active than they've really ever been in free agency.
Right.
And they re-signed some of their own guys as well. But, as strange as this is to say, this is still the Bills' division. I mean,
there's no question.
I think they proved last year that they're a step above the Patriots, and I think that'll continue this year. I don't think that the Patriots really they might have done enough to get into the playoffs. I find it hard to believe they'll have a worse year than last year just because I think Belichick's he's kind of had a season to regroup and kind of decide where he wants to go here.
But if you remember a year ago at this time, we were sitting here talking about, is it Belichick or Brady? Well, I think we found out now that it's Brady, right? All right. Yeah. So I think what the Patriots don't have anymore, forget about Tom Brady as the player. That in and of itself is at a very, very high level. But look what he did in Tampa Bay. I mean, he changes the culture of the team. I mean, he gets everybody else to play above their level, right? And I think that's what he did at the Patriots, okay? His last year there, he couldn't do it as well because they had nobody, okay? So I think the Patriots, like you said, they're still going to struggle until they find a quarterback, they're never going to find another Brady, but until they can find a quarterback that can play at a level that you need in the NFL right now, they're just going to be a struggling team. Yeah. I mean, I just don't see how they're going to avoid that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick would have been a good signing for them, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he would have been a great signing for them. I mean, he's proven that he can be successful, and I think it was a great signing for Washington. Yeah. I mean, they got a good defense, Washington. Now you got a quarterback that,
But Washington's not going to use him right. They're going to do what everybody does. They're going to start him at the start of the season.
But they only have that Tyler, was it?
But I feel like everybody with Fitzpatrick, as soon as he has a few bad games, they'll take him out.
It's not even bad games. He's always been benched for like a high draft pick or somebody they think's the future. I don't think Washington has that guy.
They don't have that
Heineke's like a backup guy. Right. I don't think they think he's their future.
Right.
Is that the case? He's always been benched for that type of situation? They always put him back sometimes then too, don't they? Like back and forth.
Yeah, it's back and forth. Yeah, I mean...
Okay, I'm just saying, like, that you've seen what Fitzpatrick is, and he's really good a lot of the time. Just if you want him to be your guy for a year or two, just let him play. Pull him out, put him back in.
Right. I agree with that.
But Washington, I think, of course, that division's kind of wide open. I think they'll be in the hunt. I mean, of course, obviously they won it this past year. They'll be in the hunt again.
Who's to say Washington won't draft a quarterback this year, and they'll do that to Fitzpatrick? They'll have the rookie guy, and then week 11.
Well, I don't know. They made the playoffs. They'll be picking lower.
Right.
I guess,
unless they trade up, they're going to get one. They're not going to get a top guy.
Yeah, but I'm saying they could get somebody that they think. I mean, how high of a pick was Flacco or some of these people?
Well, Flacco was the first rounder.
Was he top 10
pick? I think he was.
Or close to that. Yeah.
But how about the Buccaneers? Let's talk about the Buccaneers a minute. The Super Bowl champs. I mean, they quietly, basically, just said, "Hey, we're going to try to win it again." They extended Brady.
They re-signed a lot of people.
They put Chris Godwin on the franchise tag, and he signed the tender. They re-signed Shaq Barrett.
Right.
They re-signed Levante David, Gronkowski, Kevin Minter, Raheem Nunez, Ndamukong Suh. I mean, they brought back basically the core of that football team. So really, I mean, who's to say they're not going to be the favorites?
I think that's a good move. A, that's a good move, and B, you're right. When now they have a whole season under their belt of this team together, they're going to be arguably just as good, if not better.
And let me go back to what I said before. I think Tom Brady is the effect that a lot of these guys re-signed, right?
Yeah.
Because they want to be back on that team because they know as long as they got Tom Brady, they have a chance to win another ring, right? And I think I think the Buccaneers are quietly saying, which I don't blame them at all, hey, let's go for it while we got this guy, right? Yeah. When Brady retires, whenever that is, all these guys, and then they're going to be terrible, but they don't care. If you win 2 Super Bowls, who cares?
Yeah, no one who cares.
They should spend as much money as they possibly can in the next year or two.
Exactly.
Super Bowl. Yeah,
exactly. So I think they're going to be the team that I think is going to be hard to beat.
Do you think Breeze no longer in New Orleans is going to help the Bucs in that division, or
I think it'll help the Bucs by far. Yeah.
That's a good segue. We'll talk about New Orleans.
Yeah.
Because there's a case to be made that like you're all saying, Breeze wasn't that great last year. Maybe it's going to hurt. Maybe they're having a quarterback in that's going to be even tougher for the Bucs to play.
He wasn't, but he was experienced. I mean, and that's the thing. That
I agree with that.
You're not going to get that from Jameis Winston, and Taysom Hill is not a quarterback. He's a running back.
Right. No, I agree with that. I'm just saying you could throw that out.
Yeah, let's see here.
What did the Saints do? Did they make any significant moves?
Yeah, well, okay. I'm not seeing the Taysom Hill deal on here. They signed him to some type of deal.
They did, yeah. They re-signed Jameis Winston.
Right, to a 1-year deal. Okay, so that's a good question.
This says that Taysom Hill agrees on a 4-year, $140 million extension, freeing up $7.5 million in cap space.
That deal is like voidable after it's a very team-friendly deal.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact terms, but I don't think he's going to be as effective as an every down, every week quarterback.
No, he's not.
I think they'd almost be better with starting Winston.
No, it's not. Yeah.
And
I think they should start Winston.
I think they should do it. And look, he's obviously going to make mistakes, but he's going to make some things happen. And
he's at least he's been a starting quarterback in the league before.
Yeah.
He's a starting quarterback. I mean, he has been. Taysom Hill's it's kind of like a
like a gimmicky guy.
Yeah, it's like a, what do you call it? It's like a it's kind of like an experiment if you start him. It's like, let's see, can he play? Can he be a starting quarterback in the NFL? James Winston can be one. He's been one.
Right.
Well, look here. I mean, they also lost Emmanuel Sanders, Janoris Jenkins, the corner, Jared Cook, tight end, Quan Alexander, the linebacker. So they lost a lot of guys.
Yeah, they did.
And then you couple that with Breeze, who, like we said, the guy knows how to play quarterback, right? And even though he wasn't
I agree
at his best level last year. So I think the Saints are going to struggle a little bit next year.
That might be the opposite effect of the Buccaneers. Everyone start Breeze retiring this team's going downhill quick. They just got out.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right. That's a good point. Let's talk about the Giants real quick. I mean, I tried to hold it in as long as I possibly could here, but I think the Giants arguably were one of the most aggressive teams in free agency. They only lost basically a couple really good guys. Outside linebacker Kyler Fackrell, who signed with the Chargers, and they lost Dalvin Tomlinson. I think he signed with the Vikings, if I'm not mistaken. But Tomlinson was a good defensive tackle, and that's going to hurt a little bit. They released Golden Tate, which was expected. They released guard Kevin Zeitler. You remember Zeitler was a guy they got from the Browns a couple of years ago in the Odell Beckham trade. All right, and he was an All-Pro guard. All right, I don't understand that move a lot because he was one of their most experienced offensive linemen. So maybe they know something I don't know. But they released him. Yeah.
The Browns could have sent a 24-pack Aquafina, and the Giants would have won that trade for getting rid of Odell Beckham.
Well, that's true. But let's look at some of the people they signed. Outside linebacker Ryan Anderson, Devontae Booker, running back, obviously to be a backup.
Yeah.
Guard Zach Fulton from the Texans. Maybe that's why they released Zietler. Kenny Golladay, which was a big wide receiver signing for them.
We know you feel about
yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Mike Glennon, a backup quarterback. Adoree Jackson. I mean, when you pair him with Bradford on the other side.
Corner.
He's a corner from the Titans. He was with the Titans.
Yeah. Okay.
He was a first-round pick with the Titans.
Okay, he's a well-known guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they've got James Bradford, who they got last year in free agency on the other side of the corner. They're going to have and then they're going to have Jabril Peppers at safety. They're going to have a pretty stout secondary this year, the Giants.
Yeah.
And they got Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah.
I think he'll be under the radar. I think he'll be sneaky good for them, Kyle.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's still got juice left, I think.
Well, he gives Daniel Jones that possession type.
I can see them, like, if they win the Super Bowl in a couple of years, the Giants, I can see Kyle Rudolph being like one of the key reasons that people look back to, like, possession guy, and when you need him, you know, playing the America's Game music and him catching balls up the middle and stuff.
You alluded to this a little bit too, like them and some of the media is acting like Kenny Golladay is like Jerry Rice here. I mean, he was a good player for the Lions. Okay. He's a good player. Like they got a good player, so I don't think that's going to be like the key to it. You know,
Indy had a if not top tier or right below top tier quarterback thrown to him, Matthew Stafford. I mean, it's not like he had a pretty prolific offense.
Here's another thing you got to remember right now with the Giants. Okay, Daniel Jones is going into his third year, which is a critical year. Okay, they've got to find out this year if he's the guy that can lead them to the promised land. All right, so you got to give him weapons. He had no weapons last year. He had no wide receivers. He lost Saquon Barkley. He had nobody, okay? We thought that Darius Slayton was going to be the guy, but he ended up fizzling out a little bit. So they're going after Kenny Golladay. They're probably going to draft a wide receiver in the draft. They got Kyle Rudolph. They obviously got Barkley coming back. They're trying to give him weapons, okay, so that they can see, all right, can he be the guy? You know, because if he's not the guy, a couple things are going to happen. If he's not the guy, Gettleman's going to be out. And there's going to be obviously they're going to have to draft a new quarterback next year. So I think that's what they're trying to do here more than anything else is get some guys that can give some production, you know.
Yeah. Did you say they signed or they're interested in Ryan Kerrigan?
They're interested in Ryan Kerrigan, but
from Washington.
But they signed Ryan Anderson from Washington, so I don't know if they're going to go after him or not. But I think he'd be a good pick because another thing they need on defense is a pass rusher. They signed Ifeadi Odenigbo. I don't know how good he is. I mean, he's probably a good stopgap guy. But you know they need a good quality. You know, they need like a Bosa type guy. You know, that's what they need. So, but I think the Giants. I mean, I think the Giants had a good offseason, and I think them and Washington will be the two teams that'll be the teams to watch in the NFC East.
Yeah. What do you think about the Bears? I think. Last night, the night before recording this, they tweeted out some picture of Andy Dalton and said like QB1.
Yeah,
like he's the starter. Andy Dalton's the starter. Like, do you think he's that much better than Mr. Trubisky? I feel like they're kind of similar. Like, I don't think they got better at the quarterback position.
Maybe it's just some rogue marketing person in charge of the social media.
Maybe, but you know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. They still have what's his name? Foles. Still got Nick Foles, don't they?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think any of those guys is the clear cut. I don't think any of those guys is head and shoulders better above the other to warrant a tweet saying QB1 in March.
Right.
But yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I mean, like I don't think any of them is good enough to just declare right now. Here's their QB1. You know, I mean,
I think Andy Dalton. I mean, he's not going to be a franchise guy anymore. But I think he proved with the Cowboys last year that he's a quality quarterback.
Well,
I mean, and I think that the Bears are in kind of limbo right now. I mean, they don't really know what direction they want to go in. They've had the same general manager who keeps making dumb moves, in my opinion, and they're still don't have a quarterback. They haven't had one for quite some time. So I think maybe they figure, look, we got Andy Dalton. He can be the guy that at least give us some consistent play. And but their window's closing. Their defense is
the way you just described Andy Dalton. You could describe Foles and Trubisky the exact same way. They're a quality guy. They've shown they can play well. They get some consistency.
Yeah. But I think Trubisky made too many mistakes at key times. You know what I mean?
He did.
He was a quality guy, and he made some great plays. but he made too many mistakes. You know what I mean? That shouldn't have been made, and I think that's probably what led to the change. You know, I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. And let's look at the Dallas Cowboys, the other team in the NFC East that would be competing with the Giants and the Redskins, or the football team, whatever you want to call them. They lost a few guys. Of course, Andy Dalton. They lost some other guys that really no-name type guys. But the big deal with them is they signed Dak Prescott 4 years, $160 million, $126 million guaranteed. What do you think about that signing?
That's a classic, as I've talked about before. Like, they ask themselves, who else are we going to get?
Right.
Like, Prescott's a good player, and he's fine. But, I think they paid too much for him. I would have, like I said, especially coming off an ankle injury like his,
right.
prove that you're fine.
Right.
And just, I would have done the Kirk Cousins treatment.
Right.
Let him play out his deal, franchise tag him again, and let him walk. I mean, he's not like that good, so
I think a lot of times people overpay because they feel like you said that
right.
They can't get, even though he's not that good, they can't get that quality from anywhere else. They'll overpay to keep that quality.
I know.
But I do think I'm fine with it. I think that's fine. I like your idea, what you said, Joseph. That's a good idea. But I think it's interesting that if they felt that he deserved this type of contract now after the ankle injury, why didn't they feel that when he wanted it last season?
Right.
That's a good question.
That's a really good question.
I think part of it is a little sympathy. I think they felt kind of bad for what happened to him.
Yeah, but you don't win Super Bowls with sympathy.
No,
you know that.
I'm not saying they shouldn't.
Yeah, I know.
Jerry Jones is the type of guy that would do that.
I agree with you.
He likes Dak Prescott.
I agree with you, but that's why the Cowboys.
I think they saw them like, God dang, well.
That's why the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl in
Dak's a
30
good
years.
kid. Dak's a good kid.
Yeah.
Give him his money.
Yeah, well.
I don't know. I'm just saying maybe.
No, I know.
Otherwise, why would they not have done this before last season?
I agree with you. 100%.
This is what he always wanted, wasn't it?
I agree with you. In fact, he got a better deal now than he was being offered last year.
Yeah, because he wanted what he got now.
He got $40 million a year, basically. I mean, and he was talking 32, 33, 34 last year, and he got $126 million guaranteed.
Who would have thought going to last season when this was going on, if you would told somebody, well, they're not offering that right now, but just he'll have, if he has a big ankle injury, misses all season, then they'll offer it to him. It's like, what? Like, how's that going? It'd be like if he won MVP, then maybe they'll offer it to him. If they take him to the Super Bowl, maybe they're.
I don't understand it. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions real quick. We alluded to them a little bit. Of course, this doesn't technically fall under free agency, but I think we need to include it. They traded Matthew Stafford to the Rams and got Jared Goff back in return, which is kind of interesting. I mean, I think it's a great deal for the Rams. I'm not so sure it's a great deal for the Lions. What do you think?
Well, I mean, if you're the Lions and you're rebuilding, which you have to, I think you have to.
They are.
I don't know if they admit that publicly, but I think inside they have to, know that.
Right.
Okay, so Goff is still pretty young.
Right.
He's probably like, what, 26, 27?
Yeah, that's all.
So, in the time it takes to do a rebuild, if that's what we're trying to do, say it takes 3 years. He's still 29, 30. If he's actually good, which I guess they think he's good, he's showing that he's good. It can be good, let's put it that way.
Right.
Then I think it's an okay move for them, because if they can get a team around him, I think he's still young enough to where they have a lot of years ahead if they think he's the guy, So,
but the interesting thing about it is, though,
but they have to do the rebuild right.
I agree with you there. But they lost Galladay, right, in free agency to the Giants. They lost Marvin Jones, who was their other big receiver. And then in free agency, they signed Damian Ratley, never heard of the guy. Khalif Raymond, never heard of the guy. Doesn't mean they're not any good. I mean, it just means that they're not household names. So you wonder if they're going to if that's just a stopgap, and they're going to try to draft a bunch of receivers too, because you got to give the guy weapons, right?
Yeah, I'm trying. Let's see. Khalif Raymond is a 1-year deal. Who else did you mention?
Damian Ratley.
It didn't say the years there, but yeah, a lot of these signings they have are 1-year deals.
1-year deals, right?
So yeah, like you said, it may be stopgap type of guys. You don't see that free agent here that signed a 4 or 5 year deal,
right? No, no, they basically all signed 1-year deals.
Yeah, and then they lost a lot of guys too.
They did. Yeah,
Desmond Trufant was a pretty good corner.
He was. They lost Reggie Ragland.
Yeah,
the Giants signed him. So yeah, I mean, I think
the big question in everybody's mind is what Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, of
he's
course
not.
he is.
I doubt he'll be back there. He signed a 1-year deal before the season.
Yeah, he probably won't be.
But that's the big free agent prize that hadn't landed yet, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We all know how I feel about Adrian Peterson. Wishing him the best.
Yes, we do, and that's fine.
He's going to play till he's 40.
Yeah,
Said he wants to.
How about the Green Bay Packers? Remember, we all laughed at when Aaron Rodgers came out and said he wants guarantees from the Packers. He's going to be the starting quarterback.
Assurance he's going to be the starter.
I mean, how ridiculous is that? I mean,
it's ridiculous on a couple of fronts. All right, one of which, of course, I'm sure you were going to talk about the fact that he just won MVP.
Right.
Like but and he took him to the NFC championship game. The other front is like, let's say the Packers are like, okay, you'll be the starter. Great, NFL teams never say something to their players and go the other way on it, right?
No, never.
If they tell you you're a starter, you're their starter.
Right.
Like they can say whatever they want to him right now. What does he want? Like in writing? Does he want like a guarantee, legally binding contract? Like, why does it make you feel better if the coach is like, yeah, you're going to be the starter, Aaron?
No, I know.
Like they can do whatever they want when the season starts, just because they tell him he's the starter.
Well, I think he's upset by the fact that last year they drafted that quarterback in the first round.
I guess.
But see, the thing is, he sees the writing. He sees what's happening to him that happened to Brett Favre.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's just the natural progression of things, right?
Brett Favre ever wanted them to tell him that he's the starter.
No,
they can tell him whatever they want.
But the Packers are smart. I mean, I've said this before. If you can, draft your quarterback 2 or 3 years before you need him, if possible, because then he has a chance to kind of grow. And I think that's what the Packers are trying to do.
I guess it would just make him feel better if he hears it from them, but. Like, I'm just saying, what does that prove? Unless they sign some contract that says that you're the starter, and if you're not week 1, we owe you another $10 million.
I don't know how many years are left on his contract, but even if that's true that they drafted that, what's Bryce Love is the guy?
Yes.
Or no?
No.
We should be able to figure out if it's true.
Yeah, from BYU.
Yeah.
Even if they did draft him to be Rodgers' replacement, he knows he's going to be the starter this year. That's 2 or 3 years down the road.
Right.
Of him being replaced. So that's just ridiculous. Rodgers is ridiculous.
I would love to know what his...
But the Packers, as typical for Green Bay, they didn't really sign anybody in free agency. They re-signed a couple of their own guys. They re-signed Aaron Jones to a 4-year deal. They're running back.
Well, they don't need anybody. I mean, they're still class of,
I guess
part of the
not,
class of the NFC.
It's like, it seems like that every year, though. They're always like good, but they never can get it done.
They can't get over the hump.
They can't get over the hump.
Yeah.
Or they could sign Peterson.
That would help. Well, see, they just signed Aaron Jones. Peterson needs carries.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's... Look, the Saints are out of their way now, and that's a team that always
That's true.
is in contention, so that helps the Packers, I guess.
But the Buccaneers are still in their way.
Right, I know, but I'm saying one less team. I guess the Seahawks.
The Rams, I guess, are still in their way too.
Yeah, the Rams will be pretty good this year. Yeah. with Matthew Stafford, the Rams will be the
Rams probably would beat him maybe if Dalton was completely healthy. Aaron Donald in that playoff game.
I think it's interesting too. Let's switch gears a little bit. I think it's interesting that you look at the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, Russell Wilson actually came out on a talk show and said that he was tired of getting sacked so much, in not so many words. Well, what did they do in free agency? I mean, they signed a tight end, they signed a defensive end, and they signed a cornerback. They traded for a guard from the Raiders, Gabe Jackson, who I think is a pretty good guard. But basically, that's it. So unless they're going to draft a lot of offensive linemen, I don't see him being sacked any less than he's been sacked.
Maybe Russell Wilson went to him and said, "I'm sacked to him. Get me Gabe Jackson."
Maybe he did. He did. Yeah, I mean, that's probably true. Gabe Jackson is a good free agent pickup for them. But
he probably doesn't think they did enough either, right? Is he still upset?
Yeah, I don't know.
Didn't he list some teams after that he wanted to be traded to?
He did, and they almost had to deal with the Bears. I mean, the Bears, get this, I read where the Bears offered the Seahawks 3 first-round picks and some other picks.
Okay.
Well,
the next 3 years?
Next 3 years.
Or they, okay.
Yeah.
I know, but did they ever skip in 2025
no,
you get
no,
one?
Not usually. They could, but they don't. 3 first-round picks plus some other things, and the Seahawks wouldn't do it, which I think's stupid. I mean, 3 first-round picks? I mean, come on.
For a guy that doesn't want to be on your team?
And who's also, 8-9 years in the league? Yeah. I mean, so he's already 31, 30. I mean,
should have taken that.
3 first-round picks.
What's he going to do in this year or next year that's going to be that much better than what he's already done that's going to increase his trade value?
I don't know. That's a really good question. And I think, Now, if this was like 2 years after their Super Bowl win, I'd have said,
That's
no
what
way.
I'm saying. Short of winning a Super Bowl next year, what's going to increase his trade value?
Exactly. And
win the MVP? I guess he could win the MVP. He could win the MVP this year, probably, right? If Rodgers did.
Good, yeah. I mean,
I guess that could help.
They're probably panicking and we're like, who are we going to play quarterback then? Because they really don't have anybody that they could start.
Yeah, but who cares? If you got 3 first-round picks, you can pick a quarterback. Yeah.
Take a year where you're not that great.
I just think that was kind of stupid on their part to turn that deal down.
And again, especially for a guy that doesn't even want to be there. He's causing all types of problems.
Obviously, they don't want to be there.
He's launching IPOs with people. He's doing this and that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a questionable move there. A lot of questionable things. And here's another factor too. Free agency became a little more difficult this year because the salary cap was a lot lower because of the COVID thing and the money that was lost. The salary cap was, I think, $182 million per team, something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot lower than it was in 2020. So that's going to affect teams. It does affect teams and how they parcel out their free agent money. Yeah. So
let's see here. Touch on the Cardinals.
The Arizona Cardinals. We all know that what's his name wanted to be there badly. DJ or JJ Watt.
JJ Watt's a clown.
2 years, $28 million, $23 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
I mean, he's got to stay healthy. I mean, it seems like he gets hurt a lot recently.
It's a publicity stunt for the Cardinals.
The Cardinals.
They just spent $27 million on publicity stunt.
Yeah.
They did lose Patrick Peterson though.
They did.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna say one that's you said he has to stay healthy. What's two?
No, two. Is he still good?
Oh.
Like, you still have. He's not the.
To quote Ed Gennaro, he's got juice. Does he have juice left?
Maybe. Well, they got Malcolm Butler, I guess, to replace Peterson.
Yeah, I guess.
And they got AJ Green's interesting deal.
That's an interesting deal. Yeah.
Again, he's another guy that's been hurt constantly the past 2 years.
Right.
But if he's not, then he could be a good receiver still, I think. They re-signed a couple of guys here.
Well, I mean, I think the AJ Green deal is pretty good because the pair him with Hopkins, and you're going to have two pretty good
Larry
receivers.
Fitzgerald's back, right?
What?
Coming back, Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah, Fitzgerald's coming back for one more year. So I think the Cardinals. We talked about this before. The Cardinals could be one of those sleeper teams. That
you pointed them out at 40-1 in our.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And I think the Patriots are too, in a way. But it's another story.
No, Patriots.
No, okay. How about the Falcons? They didn't really do much. They did trade for Lee Smith from the Bills, though. So
yeah, re-signed Young Wei Koo.
Yeah, I know. They need to sign him. The guy had more fantasy points than any kicker in the league, I think. Yeah. All he did was kick field goals left and right. Yeah. They didn't have a very stellar free agent.
Kicked a lot of field goals because the number one receiver can't get in the end zone.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's the only reason I would never draft Julio Jones is you get like
fantasy,
like 5 touchdowns out of him.
Right.
I think the Eagles are going to really be bad this year. I mean, I think the Eagles have gone downhill tremendously.
Signed Joe Flacco.
They did sign Joe Flacco. I guess he'll be the starter before you know it. But then they released Deshaun Jackson. They had no receivers to start with, and they released Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Good move for Flacco. He didn't have to go very far. Baltimore to Philadelphia.
Yeah,
he was with the Jets. Sure, the Broncos and the Jets. Where have you been?
How about the Colts?
Who's to say his family was still in Baltimore?
That's true. That's a good point.
Segueing from the Eagles, they traded Carson Wentz to the Colts. So, what do you think about the Colts this year? What's so funny?
Nathan still living in 2013.
Well, we knew that.
If you haven't realized, we're kind of out of my depth on this episode.
That's okay. You're not out of your depth in this episode. You're making some good comments.
The
Colts re-signed T.Y. Hilton to 1 year. They re-signed Marlon Mack,
right.
Xavier Rhodes. They traded for Wentz, and they still have that defense intact. So, I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah. We talked about Wentz on another episode.
We did.
But yeah, if he can recapture his magic with his offensive coordinator buddy, and I think at this, if he can do that, I think he'll be just as good, if not a little better than Phillip Rivers.
Right.
And they made the playoffs last year with Rivers, so I think they're a playoff team.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. And then and then segueing again. This is interesting. Look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs, arguably, the reason they did not win 2 Super Bowls in a row, basically, is because they couldn't protect what's his name, Mahomes. They released Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz, both of their starting tackles. Eric Fisher, I think, was a first-round pick, if I'm not mistaken.
First overall, wasn't he?
Right.
Was close?
Right.
I don't know.
They released both of those guys. They signed Kyle Long, or he came out of retirement, which I don't understand that move, and Joe Tooney as free agents, and probably going to go offensive line in the draft, which is really going to be pretty. And those were the really biggest moves when you think about it. The rest of it is just not much to it.
What you're saying is kind of odd that they released all these guys.
It shows me that they think they're a Super Bowl champion caliber. They just need to fix that offensive line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like, okay. Yeah.
No, what did you think I was saying?
No, I thought you were saying like you came with the offensive line, but then you released all these guys. But they released because they couldn't protect.
That's true, but I think they're also going to draft offensive linemen. I think that's the reason why they did it because those guys probably had some pretty big contracts. And these guys they signed Kyle Long 1 year, max $5 million. That's nothing. And Joe Tooney 5 years, $80 million.
I think I talked about this on a Super Bowl recap episode. There's something strange about the Super Bowl game. Like what if you can't protect Patrick Mahomes, you probably don't dominate the whole season the way they dominated the season. Like you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden they can't protect him in one game.
Right.
Like I feel like I don't think the offensive line was bad.
Well, they were hurt. Some of them were hurt. All right, they had some guys hurt. But this guy they signed, Joe Tooney, he was an All-Pro with the Patriots. I mean, he's arguably considered as one of the best guards in the NFL, if not the best, right now. So I don't know. Maybe that was their thinking, or more tackles, not guards. Excuse me. So I don't know. I mean, well, I guess he is a guard, but we'll see. I'm with you, Nathan. Though I mean, I think part of the reason they couldn't protect him is they had some injuries on the offensive line. Maybe they felt like they needed to get better depth in the offensive line too. So, okay, so that's our look at free agency. Lots of moves. Lots of moves that make you scratch your head. Other moves that were pretty good moves. Some teams very aggressive. Other teams not very aggressive. A low salary cap to deal with, which made the moves even more difficult to make. We'll learn a little bit more when the draft rolls around to see what these teams do as far as filling in the spots now that they have free agency put to bed, and we'll get ready to move into the next phase of the NFL season. So it's been a good episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Join us again next time. Remember our Pressbox account at PressboxPod. Make sure you check it out for the content we put on there, whether it be a poll question or whether it be a rating question or a pick question, whatever it may be. Make sure you check it out and give us some feedback.
It's on Twitter, by the way.
What did I say?
Our Pressbox account.
Oh, yeah. Well, it is our Pressbox account, but it is on Twitter. Yeah. At PressboxPod is on Twitter. That's true. So, check that out. Make sure you interact with us. We look to have some more guests in our upcoming episodes, and we appreciate you joining us on episode number 75 of the Pressbox Podcast.